What is Arirang? A song of resistance and unity. Hello and welcome. This is the podcast we publish alongside the Wonder Korea newsletter, a space where we slow down and look at Korea and at ourselves a bit more closely. I'm Anna, an editor here at Wonder Korea, and I'll be your host today. Thanks for spending a little of your day with me. So let me get straight to it. Earlier this year, BTS reunited as a full group for the first time in a while, and the album they came back with was titled Arirang. The choice drew a lot of attention around the world, and it raised a simple question worth sitting with. Out of everything they could have named it, why Arirang, a centuries-old Korean folk song? When a group that global reaches back for something that traditional, it tells you the song carries real weight. So that's where today's episode picks up. We're going to set the spotlight aside and look at the song itself, what Arirang actually is, why a few simple notes can bring Koreans to tears, and how a humble folk melody came to be called the cultural DNA of an entire nation. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with the basics. What actually is Arirang? People often call it Korea's unofficial national anthem, and that already tells you something because it's not officially anything. Nobody passed a law making it a national song. It just became one naturally. Over generations, it's much more than a traditional folk tune. It's woven into the Korean identity itself, into the collective unconscious, if you want to get a little deep about it. And here's the surprising part. The lyrics are very simple. The most famous version goes something like this. 아리랑 아리랑 아라리요 아리랑 고개를 넘어간다 나를 버리고 가시는 님은 심리도 못 가서 발병 난다. It can be translated like this. 아리랑 아리랑 아라리요. Crossing the Arirang Hill, the one who abandons me and leaves will suffer sore feet before walking even 10 ri. And a ri here is roughly 3.5 kilometers, so we are talking a short distance. That's it. That's the heart of it. And yet, this simple little melody can make grown adults tear up. So the real question is, why? What's hiding underneath those plain words? To understand that, we can't just look at the music. We have to look at the hill. In the song, the singer talks about crossing the Arirang Hill. And here's the key. In Korean culture, that hill isn't a real place on a map. It's a metaphor. The Arirang Hill is every hardship you've ever had to climb, every obstacle, every steep, exhausting stretch of life where you weren't sure you'd make it to the other side. And crossing it, that stands for resilience, that stubborn, quiet strength to keep putting one foot in front of the other, even when the path is steep and the climb feels impossible. So when someone sings about the Arirang Hill, they're really singing about survival, about endurance, about getting through. Now here's where it gets interesting, because there's a bit of a paradox at work. At the very core of Arirang, there are two emotions living side by side, and they seem like opposites. They are called Han and Heung. Let's start with Han. Han is this deep collective sorrow, a kind of unresolved grief that comes from a long history of struggle and hardship. And Arirang holds that. It acts like a mirror for all that pain, and at the same time, like a lullaby that comforts a tired soul. But, and this is the twist, Arirang is also about joy. That's Heung. Somehow, the song takes all that sorrow and turns it into rhythm, into energy, into something you can move to. It proves this remarkable thing about the Korean spirit, the ability to find joy right in the middle of pain. So when Koreans sing Arirang, they're not just sitting in their sadness. They're using Heung to rise above Han, taking something tragic and turning it into a bond, something shared. A private grief becomes a communal one, and that shift is really the whole point of the song. And this power, it really got cemented during a very dark chapter, the Japanese colonial period from 1910 to 1945. Back in 1926, there was a film called Arirang, directed by Naeun-gyu, and it used the song as a symbol of national resistance. From there, Arirang became a kind of marching song. Independence fighters up in Manchuria and China sang it to hold on to hope, to keep believing in a free homeland. And this next part is worth underlining. Even today, on a peninsula that's still divided, Arirang remains the one cultural thread that connects North and South Korea. At the Olympics, at international summits, it shows up again and again as a song of peace, a reminder that whatever the politics, there's a shared root underneath it all. So where does Arirang stand now? Well, today it's officially recognized by UNESCO as Intangible Cultural Heritage, honored for its creativity and its diversity. And get this, there are over 3,600 variations of it across around 60 regions. 3,600. And it's still evolving. It hasn't faded into a museum piece. Modern artists, BTS very much included, keep carrying these traditional sounds to a global stage, introducing them to people who've never heard them before. And when you zoom out, Arirang feels almost strangely relevant right now. In a world that can feel so fragmented, so fast, so isolating, the digital loneliness, the constant low hum of anxiety, Arirang is basically an anthem for the human hill. The same song that helped Koreans through colonization and war now speaks to anyone facing their own uphill climb. Because that's the lesson really. Arirang teaches us that sorrow, Han, isn't a dead end, it's a turning point. And the deepest kind of healing happens when we take our private struggles and turn them into a shared rhythm, into Heung. And that's really what makes Arirang the ultimate open source heritage. When BTS carried this ancient melody onto the world stage this year, from Gwanghwamun and beyond, they were a reminder that the song doesn't just belong to the past. It belongs to anyone, anywhere, who's climbing their own mountain right now, whispering to them that the view from the top only means something because of the strength you found on the way up. So the next time you hear those three little words, Arirang, Arirang, Arario, I hope you hear all of it, the sorrow and the joy, the history and the hope, a whole people's story folded into one quiet melody. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If this gave you something to think about, share it with someone who'd appreciate it. And whatever hill you happen to be climbing right now, I'm rooting for you. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.